The Senate broke with President Trump on Wednesday over the Saudi-led military campaign in Yemen, paving the way for a veto showdown with the White House. Bum, bum, bum. Senators voted 54 to 46 to pass a resolution requiring the president to withdraw any troops in or affecting Yemen within 30 days unless they are fighting al-Qaeda. Like the last time they did it 3 months ago, in referring to the previous resolution. GOP Senators Susan Collins from Maine, Steve Daines from Montana, Mike Lee from Utah, Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, Jerry Moran from Kansas, Rand Paul from Kentucky, and Todd Young from Indiana voted with Democrats on the resolution. The chamber first passed the resolution in December, but it did not pass the GOP-controlled House before the end of the 115th Congress and was reintroduced this year. The Senate vote, which is still open, comes hours after the White House formally threatened to veto the resolution, arguing it was flawed and has an erroneous premise. The joint resolution would raise serious constitutional concerns to the extent that it seeks to override the president's determination as commander-in-chief. If that isn't bootlicking for the executive branch, I don't know what to tell you. Let's read it again. The joint resolution would raise serious concerns, constitutional concerns, to the extent that it seeks to override the president's determination as commander-in-chief. What the hell does that even mean? The White House Office of Management and Budget said the resolution still needs to pass the House before it heads to Trump's desk. Senate supporters believe it could get a vote in the lower chamber as soon as Thursday, paving the way for potentially the first veto of Trump's presidency. Representative Ro Khanna said he expected the House would take up the legislation the next couple of weeks. Our office is working with leadership and the Congressional Progressive Caucus, which is anything but progressive because they should have been all over this when it started 4 years ago, to finalize a date of when we will pass the Senate War Powers Resolution and send it to the president's desk. Now, this confused me because I thought they already passed it in the House. So why isn't it just directly going to Trump? Whatever. Wednesday's vote comes a day before the Senate is likely to pass a resolution of disapproval blocking Trump's emergency declaration, setting up a 1-2 punch that will force the president to reject back-to-back legislation from Capitol Hill. I'm sure Republicans want to peel two Band-Aids off at once. It hurts less, said Senator Christopher Murphy, Democrat from Connecticut, a co-sponsor of the Yemen legislation. This will be the first two vetoes coming in rapid succession. Maybe Republicans did notice the 2018 election. I'm not really sure what he means by that, but all right. Saudi Arabia has emerged as a growing split between Trump and Congress in the wake of the slaying last fall of Washington Post contributor Jamal Khashoggi, who was a critic of the Saudi government. Trump has refused to pin the blame of Khashoggi's death on Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, saying in a widely panned statement late last year that maybe he did and maybe he didn't. Jesus Christ, so wishy-washy. Trump added that the U.S. may never know all the facts surrounding the murder of Khashoggi. Yeah, because you won't investigate it, or whatever. Khashoggi was last seen entering the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on October 2nd. The Saudi government maintained the killing was carried out by rogue agents as part of an interrogation that went off track. An explanation has been met with heavy skepticism by lawmakers on Capitol Hill. Trump's stance has put him at odds with Republicans in Congress as well as his own intelligence community, which has reportedly determined that the Saudi crown prince ordered the killing of Khashoggi. I wish they would just talk about the actual Yemen war in this article. I don't know why we have to go into this Khashoggi stuff, because we already know this. We already know that for 3 years, a majority of people in Congress were perfectly fine with 85,000 children being bombed to death under the age of 5. And this was completely a regular thing all the way up until this journalist happened to get murdered for, speaking out rightfully against the horrors and terrors of the Saudi government. But anyways, it's hard to get excited about a lot of this stuff because when the resolution passed back in December, I really thought this war had a strong chance of ending. especially since it was in the off season of, the lame duck 115th Congress, which was still Republicans, still the majority of seats in the House. Um, so when it passed in the House, a couple of weeks ago, or I think it was last month, I was happy about that. And then I thought to myself, if Trump vetoes this, right? If he does, which they've already, I'll read the article on whether he intends to do it or not. But if he vetoes this and they aren't able to increase the number of people who are supporting getting out of this conflict, there's a really strong chance that they can't override the veto. Um, and this is part of what is so, I always talk about people don't pay attention to stuff and they just kind of let their lawmakers do whatever. I guarantee you in my state of California, if you went up and asked the 39 million people that live here, what is the position with regard to Saudi Arabia of Senators Feinstein and Harris? I guarantee you no one except for maybe me and 40, 50 other people, and that's pushing it, would be able to tell you that. And a lot of that number that could tell you that would say, oh, because they love to fawn over these politicians for whatever reason. Oh, these are such great people. They're opposed to that war, which is why they said nothing about getting out of it prior to last year. Let me say hello to Ruben. Yeah, we're having a bittersweet day here. The Senate voted to get out of this terrible conflict, and I can't even get happy because the White House is little stupid warmongers are trying to get Trump to veto it. So let me go back and read this other article on the planned veto. Jesus Christ. And I don't know if you were the same person, Ruben, but earlier in the stream I mentioned the part where the White House was saying that the resolution would undermine Trump's determination as commander in chief, and it's just they really are pushing for a dictatorship, because the whole point of Congress is these are the elected officials who, while not having the same power as the president, as a collective group can override various things that the president does if enough of them get together. And these pricks in the White House are so hungry to keep bombing this country that they're telling the American people, your Congress is, by exercising its powers, going against the determination of the president in his role as commander in chief. And again, this won't be talked about on the news at all. Just whatever. I'm a broken record. All right. The White House on Wednesday formally indicated that President Trump would veto a joint resolution calling for an end to U.S. support of the Saudi-led military campaign in Yemen ahead of a key Senate vote on the measure. The Office of Management and Budget released a formal statement of administration policy that called the resolution flawed and suggested it could undermine the president's role as commander-in-chief. Advisors would suggest Trump veto the measure, the statement said. In addition to the erroneous premise, the joint resolution would harm bilateral relations in the region. Yes, it's more harmful for us to not bootlick for Saudi Arabia than it is to just stop bombing thousands of people who've done nothing to us. Negatively affect our ability to prevent the spread of violent extremist organizations. You mean like the United States, where we'll sell we'll sell $100 billion in arms if it means getting a couple more dollars that we don't even need, and then still come back here and tell you we're in debt while we have a $750 billion military budget. But whatever, just I'll be quiet. Too much stuff is making sense. And establish bad precedent for future legislation by defining hostilities to include defense corporation, such as serial refueling for the purpose of this legislation. Man, they're just talking all this mumbo jumbo. They always do this. Every time you have something that they don't like, they try to make it seem as if it's going to be the end of the world if this thing passes. I got a news flash for you, White House pricks. Most people have no idea we're even over there, and likely couldn't even tell you the casualties, what partners we have in that conflict. Nothing. So they're doing perfectly fine without knowing it. It's like if it was such an important thing, how the hell were we? How the hell was the U.S. around for over 200 years before getting involved there? Answer that. Ruben says Trump has already said he likes what the president of China declared himself president for life. I think it was Manafort himself. Trump will be outraged if he loses. This is not good. Yeah, but it's the pricks that enable him because, like I said before, his supporters have this weird thing where they treat him like half the time a smart person, half the time a baby. Because I was telling one of them, hey, look, he's appointed idiots. He has an FCC chairman that was trying to repeal net neutrality. Here's why it's good. And they agreed with me as to net neutrality being good. And then they said, oh, well, they should get rid of the FCC chairman, not Trump. It's like, but douchebag, he's the one who appointed him there. And he's made no public stand against this man's policy. He did that fully knowing that this guy had a history of taking behind the scene bribes from Verizon and Comcast and all these other groups that would benefit from internet users having less service options. And it was the same thing with his foreign policy team. He talked about draining. We've been over this a million times. He talked about draining the swamp, and then he picks up Bush UN ambassador Bolton and puts him as his national security advisor, and I'm supposed to take him seriously. So it's just they refuse to accept anything. But like I said, because of how ridiculous how much they want to lick Trump's nutsack forever, this also entails them bootlicking for this war. Again, these people do not care about this conflict because they never talked about it until this Senate vote passed, or it became a thing in the news, basically. Because I've spoken about this while the news wasn't covering it in the months between the Senate vote, before the Senate vote, and also after the fact. I think actually my first video I did was before Khashoggi's death, and it was just me kind of being pissed off and like, oh, this is never going to end. But my point is, these are the same people who will try to convince you that they're they're passionate about this stuff, and they're not. They're just hacks. That's why they don't talk about any of it unless it's in the news. So they didn't care about being in Yemen until Trump said, oh, I'm going to veto the resolution to get out of there. And they're going to blindly go along with what he does and what he says so they can keep licking Orange Man's nutsack. That's all it's about. Being little cheerleaders for the wannabe dictator. Jesus Christ. Let me see if there's anything else in this stupid article I can pick out and mock and lampoon. It looks like that's about it. So, they just more fear mongering. Oh my God, Ruben, if we stop bombing random people in Yemen who've done nothing to us, think of all the chaos that will ensue. What's that? 85,000 people under the age of 5 have been murdered by the U.S. in the last 3 years in that particular region. Oh, that's nothing. Who cares about those brown kids? Doesn't matter. Just another day in the banana war hood. I swear, I'm astonished. Like, I wish I could be happy that it passed. I wish I could be happy that it even was able to get the votes in the House, because see, I said this before, I don't trust the Democrats as a party because they have members who get away with doing stupid things. Just like, Manchin votes for Kavanaugh, gets completely away with that. 3 Democrats vote for Gorsuch, get completely away with that. 5 Democrats vote against getting out of Yemen in December, get completely away with that. So, you can go down the list, but there's always a group of members of that party, and a lot of times it's a majority of that party that leaves me on thin ice, which is why I said that, I don't like either party, and I call the Democrats the Democlowns, because they talk about all these values like the Republicans do. Oh, we stand for and then you go and look at their actual voting record, and it's the complete opposite. You're going to have a lot of the same, when you look at the ones who voted for it, right? These are a lot of the same people who talk about, we need to restrict abortion rights and it's murder and blah, 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 blah. And then what the hell do you call all these bombings? And you surely don't care about children or babies or anything, because again, 85,000 of these kids have died since a majority of the members in there were in there. They were, they've been around for the last 4 years able to do something about it, and they didn't. And I guess what ultimately pisses me off is that I had a person who tried to tell me not to impugn the motives of representatives. Let me read your comment. The Democrats that voted yes for the Trump tax cuts. Yeah. You have to refresh my memory on what exact ones there were. I don't think any in the Senate did. I think some in the House might have. But yeah, also that as well, Ruben. But I had a person who tried to tell me a while ago that it was wrong to impugn the motives of people who were in office, and if they change their mind on something, that's good and that's great. It's like, no, people should be able to look at a conflict. Yeah, it's hard to remember all those. Don't sweat it, Ruben. There's 435 members in the House. And I only expect you to remember, besides Pelosi, two of them, Omar and AOC, because they cover them like crazy now. Like nothing, like literally, you wouldn't even remember that anybody else is there. We're going back to what I was saying. This person told me don't impugn the motives of members of Congress. Let me say to Dirk. I said to them, look, if I can go and look at that person's voting record and it's been pro Saudi Arabia or pro Israel up until a year ago or a few months ago, I'm going to know that person is just now switching over to continue to try and squeeze votes and trick people into thinking that they're a progressive or someone that actually cares about a particular issue. Just like all these I think we were talking about this, all the senators and members of the just people who are running for president, right? All talking about free college. I'm like, dude, you guys, why would anybody take you seriously? You literally never spoke about this before a couple of months ago. Like, that's my point. You don't get to come around after people have been mocked and shamed and lampooned for discussing a policy proposal like getting out of wars or the Green New Deal, whatever, that required them to walk the walk and talk the talk of being the only person in their party other than maybe a few other people to back that position. And then now you come around and try to squeeze the popularity of that after it's been tested to be something that people like. That's the complete opposite of political courage. And I tried to explain this to that person, that when you look at these wars, right, and the fact that you have these defense contractors trying to push for them behind the scenes, the White House pushing for it, the fact that none of these Republicans who call themselves so upset about the Democrats exploding the deficit don't say anything shows you they're empty suits. I mean, like, again, if we look at all of these different wars, all of these different budget proposals, the only two that ever seem to just consistently vote against them are Paul and Lee. And that should tell you something, that the rest of them are full of crap. That really should be the nail in the coffin, but it unfortunately won't be. Empty suits with packed wallets. Yeah, but like I said, these people get away with that because a majority of Americans do not care about anything we do overseas. Like, I guarantee you, we could do a poll and there would be less than 5% that know we're bombing 7 countries, which is completely pathetic. But again, if you try to tell people this stuff, it goes in one ear and out the other. Or in a lot of instances, they try to argue. If they're a Trump supporter, they try to argue it even exists. Like, in their heads, they think he's ended like 5 or 6 of those conflicts already. And I mean, that's what I'm saying. I can't fight that. I can't, because if I show them an article, it's fake news. If I say that's not true, they call me Trump derangement syndrome. So I have no ability to talk to these people. And again, I wouldn't spend any time attempting to reason with them if they didn't have the same power as me to vote, and cast the same amount of power at the ballot box, albeit an uninformed power because they don't know what the hell they're doing. But you get my point. It's the only reason I bother with them. I look at it as you extend the hand of knowledge to someone, they slap it, and hey, you tried. Move on to the next person. So I can already picture worst case scenario is he vetoes it. They don't get any more people to switch over. I still think they might be able to do it in the House, sustain it or override it, but in the Senate, I don't see it. God, it sucks so much because, as I said before, whenever this is why I really like the as far as just the kind of the energy people had. My favorite period in the U.S. is the probably the '60s, because you have these riots, and it was people understanding that you couldn't rely on the federal government alone to try to push for anything. And it seems like even though we still kind of had that a little bit, it's not the same amount. But like, imagine if we had some anti-war group in every state that got about maybe a couple 100,000 people to just all canvass around a particular politician's offices. Again, they would that would be an understanding that public pressure overrules waiting for the people who are in government to decide, yeah, enough is enough. Yeah, I've been saying that before. They identify as pro-life and then they're pro-genocide. Like, what the hell? And again, when you tell their supporters this, they always do this like, let's support Big Brother crap of, oh, maybe he understands this. Maybe I swear it's the most infuriating thing to talk to these people and get the responses I've had of just, oh, it's not a bad thing that he did this because maybe he understands that if we get out of there, the terrorists are going to come get us. And, I think I told you about the one idiot that back in like September, October tried to tell me that Trump was trying to end the wars. And again, couldn't offer me any proof or any evidence of steps he's taken to get out of any of these conflicts. But just in their heart, they believe he wants to end these. And it's that same kind of shutting off of your brain to bootlick for a politician that is going to cause this conflict to go on for the remainder of the time he's in office, whether he's in there for another year or 5. It's the exact same ideology that lets people vote for these Democrats for president that have taken no stands of courage their entire public careers. And now they want you to believe they're ready to be your leader. So give me a break, man. I was just really happy when I saw, in particular, the what's that guy's name? The housing secretary, the one that was under Obama, the one from Texas. I was so happy to see him polling at 1%, even though Harris is polling at like 12 or 13 when she should be at like 2 or 3. It was nice to see him all the way at the bottom, because you literally are known for nothing. Yeah, Castro. Remember the reparations comment he made about Bernie, and just the I just love seeing that CNN video where there's like, it's just a wave of dislikes. Like, yeah, man, this is garbage. No wonder you're at 1%. You're gonna stay down there. 1962 Democrat. No, 82. Because that's around the time they start trying to do that. I think actually there was an article where this person said basically that after Dukakis's failure to beat the older Bush, all the Democrats try to be like Republicans, where they all support the death penalty. They all want to, show themselves to be so hawkish on war and all that crap. And I just think to myself, like, they really thought in their heads, and remember, these are grown people. These are people that were in their 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. They thought in their heads that it would be much more popular. Or one of the reasons the Republicans won elections because they go around and try to project themselves as being strong by wanting to be in never-ending wars and conflicts. And then the person who wins the election is like the last Republican president that doesn't have never-ending wars or conflicts. But then after he dies a couple months ago, gets smeared like he was the same as his son when he was completely the opposite in a lot of instances. Whatever. That's just me fanboying over the older Bush. Yeah, Biden and Lieberman. It's the same kind of thing. They would have voted to stay over there. And even if they didn't, you can't think to yourself that these people. And I guess that's why when I talk about all these different senators and politicians, it's harder for me to feel like their supporters have any ground to stand on, because I know these people's records. I look their stuff up. I try to read it. Oftentimes, I can point to a particular politician that I thought was significant, and then say, "Oh, I don't like it. They voted this way on this, that way on that, yada yada yada." Just like I was watching Tom Hartman's show, the one that is on Free Speech TV, and he was talking about how progressive Sherrod Brown is and all that crap. Just really making him out to be this great, person, right? Just somewhere around where Bernie and Warren are, at least where Bernie is anyway. And I look at his record and I say, okay, he voted to stay in Yemen the first time around, and that's a failure on his part, because for as bad as Clova Charas and Booker are, they voted to get out of there. In addition to opposing Medicare for all and wanting to do, what was it, Medicare at 55 or some incremental crap. I must represent the center value of the country. Yeah, well, like I said before, Dirk, that center stuff did no favors for McCaskill or Heitkamp. They got smashed, and no better for them. No, I think I told you the same person told me that we couldn't have had we will never get single payer without having had Obamacare. And I'm like, douchebag, did you even look at the fact that in all these other countries, like, oh my God, I hate that people don't know anything about the world. How the hell, what did other countries who have single payer have before single payer? Nothing. They just go to it. Jesus Christ. It's like me telling you, Dirk, you can't get a girlfriend who, if you want a girlfriend who doesn't cheat on you and steal your money, you have to get one who just cheats on you and doesn't steal your money. You can't just get one that doesn't do either of those two things. We gotta move the needle a little bit. Oh my God. What a bunch of fools, I swear. I mean, what's worse, having your tax dollars wasted in a conflict that most people don't even know about that's killing loads and loads of individuals? Um, we're trying to explain to these people that this is a bad thing, and then because they're so supportive of this president, will do whatever he wants and will like whatever he does, it becomes completely pointless. I mean, it just feels like a lose-lose situation all the way around. God, man, I just, Jesus Christ. And now we're getting ready for this stupid border emergency declaration thing, and it's dumb because the news, for whatever reason, can't talk about two stories without one of them just completely overriding the other. And I'll read your comment in a moment, Dirk. So just like how we have this war, it's been going on for 4 years that people are trying to end. It won't get discussed whatsoever. But some old crap with the border is going to just completely spam the airwaves. I think if you want to have an actual discussion about that issue, it's fine. But again, this major war that's been going on for almost half a decade is going to get completely swept under the rug in favor of CNN, Fox, MSNBC, NBC, you name it, sitting up there talking about the emergency declaration for 5 hours. Okay, and the other type, I'm the center. Oh, okay, you already wrote that. All right, I just want to make sure I was correct in reading what I thought I read. Oh yeah, no. That's kind of my point. That I don't know why Trump supporters don't ask themselves, why didn't this come up for a vote during the first 2 years when he had control of Congress? Think about it. Why didn't it ever come up for a vote? I remember the Obamacare repeal that crashed and failed, got a vote. The tax cuts got a vote. Why didn't this get a vote? And now because he's upset that his party lost the House, instead of waiting 2 years to see if they can regain it, he's trying to just now start doing this. Like, again, these people never think to themselves, why, And like one of the people who are, someone argued, oh, well, we never had a filibuster-proof Senate, the Republicans. I'm like, dude, you still had a majority. Why the hell did this not at least come up for a vote? Because remember, if you recall, Dirk, what's his name? From Indiana, Donnelly. He was supporting of the wall, and he's a Democrat. So they could have probably been able to get him and Manchin and then some of the other centrist ones to vote for it, under the impression that was going to make them popular with Republicans. Point is, it wouldn't have mattered at this point if they would have tried that back then. Well, that's my point, Dirk, but these people never asked themselves, why didn't he put up legislation for his wall when they had control of Congress? It's 2 years. It's not like, oh, I fell asleep today. I can't. Oh my God, my whole agenda is screwed. No, you had 600 days to do this, and they just wouldn't do it. Over 600 rather. That's I can all see. That's to show you how much that border stuff is contagious. Because I wanted to talk about this Yemen resolution, and here I am talking about some crap that the media is going to spew, propaganda on for the next 30 or 40 days until some other significant thing happens with it. So going back to what I was saying, you have these 6 Republicans vote against it. The only 2 that weren't, expected. I think Morin, the one from Kansas, I think he voted against something relating to Saudi Arabia before. So he might be another one of those senators that I hate on domestic. I hate the domestic positions of, but then on foreign issues, they're a hell of a lot better because they're consistent. They're not like the Democrats where they try to run for president. And they tell you, I was always this way. This has always been my position. Then you go and find some video of them a couple years ago saying something stupid. They're like, oh, I'm reformed. I changed 300 days before the election. Coincidentally. It's like, man, get the hell out of here. Just like right now, I guarantee you, for all of the Republicans that voted to get out of here, they're only because, the one saving grace of doing this might be the fact that since the media won't report on it really hardly at all, they can get away with bucking Trump. So maybe that's the silver lining I'm missing. Maybe that's the one positive note we're supposed to take away from this. But everything else is still true. Trump's going to veto it. It is likely not going to pick up any Republicans in the Senate, which is really weird because I just can't imagine you have over 40 people in there that are just like, yeah, let's keep bombing forever, no matter how many years pass. Well, no, I'm not surprised because, again, Afghanistan's gone on for almost as almost 2 decades at this point. So I'm not too shocked, but it is mind-boggling that they can, legitimately think in their head, oh yeah, it's cool because they know no one's gonna get pissed. So at least admits that she is still unlike the other establishment Democrats. No, Ruben, remember my Twitter, what was it, the hashtag Clova Charas garbage? It had like 4 or 5 other people use it by now. No, I think I told you that what I hate about all these different people that are running in that primary is that oftentimes I can look at the problems of a couple of them and say, okay, does that really overpower all of what they are? And then, like, you still have these people who try to convince me because they actually do have Trump Durant. Like, this is how stupid they are. You think Trump is going to lose re-election no matter what. This is the person's premise. But then you're upset that I won't vote for any of those Democrats other than 3 people, which, again, were Sanders, Warren, and Gabbard, 2 of whom I'm very confident won't make it out of the primary. Like, do you not get how backwards that is? You think he's going to lose no matter what, yet you're pissed because this person is saying he's only going to vote for 3 of the 12 or 13 people that jump in there eventually, or 14, whatever number. And that's how the major party people. So the ones that everybody knows, people like Andrew Yang and Ojeda, those are good options as well. Even though they're still below because people don't know who they are. Yeah, Clova Charas is the only thing I respect about her is that she's not trying to pretend to be Bernie. She's the only one who said, I am crap, take me as I am, or that's it. So that's her one saving grace. Everything else is trash. But again, these people, I want an answer from either one of you. You don't think that's insane that you're going to, have those 2 positions, pissed you won't vote for anybody, and then thinking that anybody can beat him or that he'll lose to anybody? No one but me thinks that's topsy-turvy. That doesn't make sense. It's just a little strange. It's just me. I think it's very strange we've been bombing this country for 4 years, and that people want me to vote for people who never spoke about it prior to when they wanted to run for president. Oh, thanks, Ruben. I'm glad. I don't know if Dirk agrees. Dirk is the same person who thought Bernie was going to announce in May. Bernie was just going to sit and go, yeah, I already have a head start. I have no idea. I have to look it up. I have not done. Look, I'm not like the other people. I'll admit my ignorance because I'll actually try to find out later on. The biggest problem for him isn't even his positions. It's just that people don't know who he is. Like how the biggest problem for Bernie in the Democratic primary is that you have actual Bernie derangement syndrome where people have convinced themselves this man is the reason Hillary lost, even though he campaigned for her. Because apparently, if he didn't run, all of us were just going to excitedly go out and vote for her. She was so charming and enthusiastic, just wonderful. Yeah. The second part was for Trump versus any Dem. Oh, okay. Now I get it. No, but go back to what I was saying. This is another one of those things where people are impacted by it in two different ways. Where if you're an American, your tax dollars are being used to fund this war that most of us don't even know about. And if you're a Yemen civilian, you have to go to sleep every night thinking that it might be your last because you're going to get bombed at any point during the day. And like, I still have people who try to argue with me about whether this is important or not. Like, I don't think you get something. When I look at Obama or Trump's picture, ever since I found out about this conflict, that thumbnail I have, I think you saw it with the little baby that is like has that stomach that's all pushed up to itself. That's the first thing I see every time I think about either one of those two. Ruben says Bernie did way more to help get Hillary elected than Hillary herself did. Yeah, again, like these. That's why I said we live in the twilight zone because, we were there 3 years ago. When none of us are just now born, so we recall him campaigning for. We recall some things he would state. We have news articles from that time, and these people still want to try to trick us into thinking that, yeah, Bernie's the reason she lost. It wasn't just because she sucked balls and she was a crappy, horrible candidate that people didn't like and had the biggest disapproval rating of any candidate in political history. No, it's just Bernie, Bernie. Jesus Christ. So we have Trump derangement syndrome. We have Bernie derangement syndrome. What other? Jesus, I keep saying that, but we're gonna find some other ones to have soon. I'm just tired of these conflicts. I want these wars to be over. And I'm really out of ideas of how they can be ended because, like I told you before, I tried to do the on the foot thing. Oh yeah, man, Fox says that all day long. No, I was sitting with a relative last night watching one of Fox's segments, and it was Hannity, and he had a guy on there talking about socialism, and he mentions the Green New Deal, and he talked about free college, and how these are two of AOC's policy proposals or whatever. And then all of a sudden he starts talking about how something about her immigration stance, and then the relative who is not really that big on AOC is like indifferent, was like, what does that have to do with anything? Just they are Red Scare full force, along with Maddow and they're in Russiagate. They are all doing that thing of trying to make somebody afraid of someone by saying you're a socialist, you're part of Putin's regime. Go away, man. Talk about an actual issue. Jesus Christ. I mean, if I tell you that most of the Republicans in the Senate are genocidal maniacs, that's not to scare you. That's to point to their voting record on this conflict. If I say that most of the media is crappy and doesn't cover the right stories, I can give you examples of particular instances where things that were important garnered very little attention. I, for example, have yet to hear the media sit here and talk about the Yemen war more than like 5 seconds. Hell, even the day that resolution first passed back in December, I didn't hear a single word about it on Fox, on CNN, or on MSNBC, any of these damn places. God, it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. I keep saying it over and over again. Because I'm just a broken record. I'm keep saying the same thing, that we're going to keep getting this approved or declined or whatever the hell, and this conflict is just going to keep on going. Because we have too many stupid people who vote for douchebags that want more coins in their pockets than people on this planet. And it doesn't seem like it's going to change because, as I said before, when I went around and tried to campaign and said, hey, guys, look at this war that's going on. These people let it go in one ear, out the other. I knocked on doors. You think I'm playing? I came up. I said, hey, let me tell you about the problems that the U.S. is having right now. A lot of times people would close the door in your face or not answer, or they again, they hear you and then it just goes in one ear and out the other, like I said. Because it's not a priority to them. As long as it's not happening to them, it's not a big deal. The only time you'll ever see the U.S. express the slightest amount of grief about anybody dying from getting bombed to death, or being starved while another country blocks their ports and prevents medicine from coming in as well, is when it happens to us. So, thank you for watching. The warmongers are in full force, and I just wish enough people actually cared about other people to be seriously against us. But unfortunately, we live in a world surrounded by narcissistic douchebags that are only interested in making themselves feel better about pretty much anything at all. Which is why, we were talking about the relationship stuff. I know Ruben's not here for that, but Dirk kind of is. And I was saying that you actually have a lot of people who try to say that I'm selfish and that I, am the reason for why that stuff has happened. But when I watch all of these different Americans, right, these people that use the internet every single day, oh yeah, the regime change in Venezuela, and they can't concern themselves with the massacre that has been imposed for 4 years by their tax dollars, just because it's not happening to them. What else am I supposed to do but conclude that they are much more selfish and much more narcissistic than I ever will be? Telling you, I have a low opinion of all these people I see posting these little stupid butt photos and all that. But you know what would rectify that? If they ever brought to attention any of these conflicts. But they won't do it because they don't know about it. And even if they knew about it, they wouldn't care. So thank you. Stay safe.